Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to talk about Morena. Let's go right away because there's a lot of stuff to say, and we don't have all night. So you give me, I think, 20 minutes to talk about it. I'm gonna try to cover the time and trying to be specific with what happened. How is that Morena became what it is today and what it represents? But for that, we need to talk about 3 points. That's history. The second one is learning from the mistakes. And the third one, I think it is the most important, is involving to the people. We need to make sure the people is part of this change. And for that, I prepared this presentation. I'm going to try to go as fast as I can. To understand what happened with Morena, we need to go back to 1968 at least. Was the first time that the students, it's very important, these students, they rise against the political power, that they was corrupt and they were against the people. I don't know if you know the massacre of October 2nd, 1968, where the government killed hundreds of students that they were
really screwed up
against the PRI political party. And so that this is very important. You're gonna see in the first part of the history how this start after the revolution has to happen all these years, where the old regime that represent the PRI political party consolidate. And in 1968, finally, the students, they were against that and they protest. And the answer to that, the government killed hundreds of people. After that, many things happened, but the next big thing that happened was in the 80s. In 1988, the election on that day bring the rupture, the break point where the PRI with one of the biggest left politicals in the history in Mexico, which is Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas, who is the son of the one of the best presidents in Mexico, Lázaro Cárdenas. He stepped aside of the PRI and started forming the new political party, which was the PRD, which today is no longer anymore in power, disappeared because of the corruption. When Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas stepped aside from the PRI, López Obrador was in that. Was not a big figure that is today, but was one of the many politics that they step aside and they say the neoliberalism is bad for Mexico. So they start forming this new political party, which was the PRD. Not only him, was a lot of people, a lot of parties. They consolidate this new party. And a lot of things happened from 1988. We watched on this election was the first election fraud in Mexico. Everybody on the streets, we knew that Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas won the election against Carlos Salinas de Gortari. But how he managed all this anger of the people was the different way that happened years after that with López Obrador. What Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas did was complaining, trying to talk to Salinas de Gortari, and other people from the PAN, the PAN political party, but he didn't involve the people. So he complained. He wins small things that help to the left to keep going, but he didn't know how to manage all this anger of the people that was already against the political party, the regime that they are governing in Mexico. The next thing that happened after 88 was in 1999, where López Obrador became the president of the PRD. As a president of that political party, he achieved two things. One, that Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas won the election to be a first mayor elected in Mexico City. That brings to 2000, when Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas tried to be president again. López Obrador won the election to be the second elected left mayor in Mexico City. In 2000, Mexico made a big step ahead to take away the PRI. Vicente Fox won the election when the political party PAN, the PAN, Action National Party, won the election. Everybody was happy in Mexico because finally we took away the PRI. But the history tells us that Vicente Fox was part of the same old and corrupted regime. That may bring in since 2000 to 2005 constant fights between López Obrador as a mayor of the biggest city in our country with Vicente Fox, who was his government was really bad in the point of view what the Mexicans were waiting or expecting from him. And this brings to the impeachment. The PRI, the PAN, they knew that López Obrador had really powers to possibilities to be the next president, and they didn't allow him to do that. That's why he tried to do the impeachment against López Obrador, and López Obrador was so smart, so he started using all that discourse, all that talking from the government against him to connect to the people. And a lot of people, a lot of the Mexicans, they went with him because we saw that what the government was doing to López Obrador was the same that the government was doing for every single Mexican in our country for the whole history. Finally, in 2006, the election on that day was the second fraud in the electoral process in Mexico. Same as in 1988, the one who won the election was López Obrador, or the PRD, but the government, they made a lot of stuff to make sure that López Obrador and the PRD didn't get to the power. The difference between the both candidates, Felipe Calderón and López Obrador, was 0.56% of the total votes. That represents 240,000 votes. López Obrador complained about that because was a lot of irregularities, but and even he proved that he proved that there were a fraud, but nothing happened. Vicente Fox was so happy, and he even declared that he made whatever it was possible to make sure that López Obrador wasn't the president. What happened, and here is the breaking point, the difference between Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas in the 80s and López Obrador. López Obrador knew that the people was with him, so he started to do a lot of stuff. The first thing, I think the biggest one was he closed one of the most important streets in Mexico, which is Paseo de la Reforma. Those who knows Mexico, they you know that this is for the tourists is where a lot of people go through there. Why he did this? And the thing, the main reason was make sure the people still remember that was something bad was happening in Mexico. For 48 days, he closed this street, and he was talking with the people, trying to find out what he's going to be doing. After those 48 days, he decided to keep going under resistance, but he knew that he needed to change something. One of the biggest problems for the fraud in Mexico is that in Mexico, the people who do the election is the regular people. They get trained for like 2-3 weeks, and then they go and they receive the people who's going to be voting. They count the voting, and they need to check and make sure everything is okay. The problem here, each political party, they have the chance to have somebody checking in every center of votation, checking that everything is okay. But Morena, on that days, the PRD, they didn't have enough people to do that. So López Obrador and the PRD, they knew that for the next election, they have to be ready for that. So they start doing that. In that period of time, 2006 to 2012, many things happened. López Obrador started seeing that inside of the PRD was the corruption, same as the PRI. Now in the PRD, there was a corruption. They was trying to push him away for the opportunity to be a candidate again in 2012. What he did was start a movement, Movimiento de Regeneración Nacional, which is Morena, that represents a lot of stuff. One of the things is Morena as a movement that they want to regenerate, change the political status in Mexico. But another one, knowing that Mexico is a very religious country, he used the Morena for the Virgen Guadalupana. They didn't accept that, but was a very a point because in the 2006 election, the church were against López Obrador. In this case, for the Morena and the word Morena, that means that he was with that people. So he used it for both things. Was that many for that López Obrador conglomerate in Morena that when the day to elect who was the candidate for the presidency in 2012, he was against Marcelo Ebrard. Marcelo Ebrard was the candidate for the PRD, but López Obrador was the candidate for the people. So they make a poll, and López Obrador won that poll, and he became the candidate for the 2012. He was ready exactly to go to the election and make sure everything was right, because at that time, without all this movement, the social movement, he knew that he was able to check every single center of votation. Votation center was somebody from Morena or the PRD. So, but he didn't check the money that they have, the regiment, the PRI and PAN. They have a lot of money for the way that the campaigns are financing in Mexico. The parties that they had more votes, they get more money. So they have a lot of money, and they make a lot of stuff to make sure that López Obrador lose the election in 2012. What happened with that? One of the things that they did, they start buying votes. They knew that was not able to do the same thing at the ADA. The PRI, the PAN, and they know they weren't able to do whatever they did in 1988. They know they were not able to do what they did in 2006, but they knew they could do more stuff. What they did, they were buying votes, giving money to people to make sure they vote for them. They used the media. The media manipulation was amazing. Everybody in the news, they were talking super bad about López Obrador, and they were showing to Enrique Peña Nieto as the best option for Mexico. They were saying that the polls, López Obrador was so behind that there was no way that more than 10 points ahead behind Enrique Peña Nieto. So this made that a lot of people decide to don't go and vote. And in Mexico, one of the biggest problems, I think, in a lot of countries is people don't go and vote. They let the very small number of people do the voting, and so that all the time is gonna, at least in Mexico, that's a benefit to the people, the parties that they have all the power. So this is what they did, and the most thing, they spend more money than they were allowed to expend. All these things were made thanks because the Federal Electoral Institute, which is the IFE, now is the INE, National Electoral Institution, they were with the PRI and the PAN. They were against López Obrador. By the end of the 2012 elections, they decide that Peña Nieto made a lot of bad things, but they didn't take away the presidency. What they did, they put a huge fine. So he paid in order to just compensate for whatever wrong he did, and he is still being the president elected in Mexico. We see in the electoral fraud in 1988, then in 2006, López Obrador was doing something different. In 2012, something happened too. It was the movement, Yo Soy 132. Same as in 1968, the young people from the public universities, they raised their voice against the PRI. In 2012, the people, the university students of the middle class, the University Iberoamericana, I think that's the name of that one. It's a very it's exclusive university. They were against the Peña Nieto. They were against the PRI. So they start doing this movement, and a lot of people, a lot of young people from this movement, they were against the political regimen that we have in Mexico. They start supporting to López Obrador. So the middle class was very important for López Obrador for the next election. But at the end, they lost the election, and Peña Nieto became the president. As I say, in 2011, Morena became just a civil association to conglomerate a lot of people and help. By 2014, they have to take the decision still as a just a civil association or became a political party. And they knew in order to fight against the regime that is in Mexico, they need money. And the money, the only way to get it in the easy way, for just to say like that, is to be in a political party. So they decide to be a political party. As we see, a lot of people start thinking about Morena from 2011 to 2014 when it became the political party and rise to power in the 2018. They say in just in 7 years they made what nobody else has been made before. The truth is that this movement is coming from long time before. Was the Lopez Obrador was so smart to start adding small things. The movement on 68, he learned from that. What happened to Cárdenas, he learned from that. The electoral fraud in 2016, he was learning and he was just making sure everything is going to be ready for the day that he had the true opportunity to 2018. A lot of people get mad inside in Morena with López Obrador in 2012 because he didn't fight to try to get back the control, to take back the presidency. But he knew and the way that everything was in Mexico was not easy for somebody to govern the country, to be the president. He knew he needs to learn more. So in 2006, he knew that he has to have people in every single center of votation. And in 2012, he learned that he need to mobilize people to make sure that everybody knew what's going on. He learned that he need to have enough money to fight against not only to the political party, but the system, the media, the all ideas of the people. So he was learning that, and he started using that to make that change. But the other thing, he knew that he need the media class, but he need the people with money. So he started talking with people like Carlos Slim, even with the owner of Televisa, of Televisión Azteca. He was talking with every single one, trying to tell them that nothing bad is going to happen when he rise to power, because he knew what he going to be doing. But it was not only that. The 6 years of government from Peña Nieto were a disaster. In 2006, Felipe Calderón called the war against the drugs, and was a very bad, big mistake that hundreds of thousands of people died because of that. Peña Nieto keep going with that war, but at the same time, they start stealing a lot of money from the people, and the people saw that, and they were more mad about that. López Obrador knew that, and he learned, and that's why he was able to manage that anger of the people to something constructive, like it was to vote for him. Andrés Manuel López Obrador, finally, his victory in 2018 was a result of a long process of social mobilization, the awakening of the conscience, el despertar de las conciencias, he called it. So what he did was this. He used the regular people like me, that was just immigrant in the United States, to start trying to learn what's going on in Mexico. And wherever we learn, keep going and teach another people, they open their eyes and see that wherever it was happening in Mexico was bad, and something, it has to be done. He reached to every single one, rich people, medium class, poor people, indigenous people. So finally, we have somebody that by himself get together a lot of people. Was something that nobody else, I think, is going to be able to do in a lot of time. That's the unique thing, characteristic of López Obrador. Morena not only agglutinates grassroots of the traditional people, but also other broad sectors of the society, including academics, businessmen, student, worker, peasant, and citizens from all regions. López Obrador is one of the few people that know every single town in Mexico, and that's a lot. At least Oaxaca has more than 500 small towns, and he knows every single one. He knew that he needed to connect to the people, and that's what he did in 12 years. was the political fight, but the same, he was just going to every single town of the country and talking with people, and the most important, listen to the people, what the people needs to say, what they would complain, and that's why he became so strong for the election. The the postulates of López Obrador, I think the most important is don't lie, don't steal, and don't betray. And he knew that people feel that they've been lying for politics, that they say everything's going to be okay, and never it was. They knew the politics were stealing money, and he said, okay, I don't going to steal. And he said, I don't going to betray your trust in me. Everybody was so tired of that. So that was his mojo, for a way to say it. He was just saying, I don't gonna do this. And people start thinking and believing in him. He was saying, I'm gonna fight against corruption. For the first, in Mexico, say, por el bien de todos, primero los pobres, for the best, first the poor. All the time put the poor people ahead. He started talking about Republican austerity. Every single government in Mexico, all the time the new government say, we are in problems. We need to fix things. So help me to stop eating and adjust your belt, as I say it here, and everything's gonna be okay. For the first time, a president say, you don't need to do anything. The government is gonna do it. The government is that's the one that's gonna stop spending a lot of money in things that we don't really need. That was the Republican austerity. Yes, he said here, for the good of all, start with the poor. Exactly. That was the idea of López Obrador. The protagonistas del cambio verdadero, I think that's one of the most important things. That's the protagonist of real change was the regular people, young people, women, social movements. As I say, for the first time, everybody was working together for one particular purpose, was bring to López Obrador to the presidency to win. So nobody else were able and is able yet to do that. Morena's triumph in 2018 that bring a lot of change. And a lot of people say with the race to power Morena is in 2018. I disagree. The rise to power Morena is in 2024. Because these 6 years on López Obrador as a president was consolidating Morena. In 2018, he won the presidency. He won 9 governorship, and in the first 3 years, he had the control of both chambers, the deputy chambers and the senators. After the middle term election, he lost a few of each chambers, but in the first 3 years, he had the power to change the constitution. But at the same time, in order for him to be a president, he had to make a deal with the rich people in Mexico. And he was saying, I don't want to make any changes in the first years on the constitution. So that's why even the rich people, they trust him. But these 3 years, what he did was structural reforms and key public policies helping to the poor people, elderly especially, women, children. He changed the energy reform, which the oil is for us, and the helium, the lithium is for us, and a lot of people again agree with that. The relationship with the United States for the first time that changed. If you remember, when Donald Trump was a candidate for his first term, he flew to Mexico, even when he was a candidate, and Peña Nieto received him as a subject. López Obrador, he never made that. I think the first international trip that did López Obrador was to the United States, and he was just saying, "We are the same. Mexico is not at your service. We're gonna talk about something important." And the three Viva Mexicos of López Obrador in the United States, at least for me as a Mexican, is a big step because all the time it's been that difference between saying that the Americans, they are superiors to the Mexican. I think, at least I lived 20 years over there and I saw that we are pretty much equal in a lot of stuff. He challenged some criticism. For 6 years, the media was fighting and complaining and saying about a lot of stuff about him, and he all the time he was ready for the answers. And the most important thing that he did was the estrangement of Morena. He's supposed to be a step aside. He say, I don't belong to Morena for these 6 years. But all the time he was so focused and paying attention what Morena was doing. In the first years of his presidency, he even complained to Morena and say, "You still doing this? I'm gonna quit from the party. I'm gonna step aside and let's see what's happened. I don't wanna support any." So finally, he took control again, and he decided. He helped to decide who was the best one to keep going with his what we call the fourth transformation in Mexico. The election in 24. He was so smart. He promised to don't do any change to the constitution in his first 3 years. He didn't do any big change of the constitution. But at the end of his term, he said, "Here you go. There is 20 constitutional reform that needs to be done." So the people knew that they need to vote for Morena because that's the only way because now we believe in López Obrador that something is going to change if that constitutional reform that be done. If you see on the picture there, that's in November 23, just one man with no security is surrounded for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. I was like at 5 meters from him. I saw where he has no security because the people was taking care of him. So this strength, this power that had López Obrador, he transferred that to Morena. Morena, for most of the people, for most of the Mexican people, is an extension of López Obrador, the idea of the new country. This is some of the few reforms that he changed. I think the most important is the Guardia Nacional, the minimum wage, which is very important. From now on, the minimum wage needs to be raised all the time, every single day, every single year, to make sure the people don't get more poor. He made the coalition with two parties, which is Partido del Trabajo, Partido Verde, not because the Morena need those parties to win the election. He knew that for the way that the political system is set up, he needs to make coalition to make sure we have enough deputies, we have enough senators to make those reforms for the Constitution. So that's why he decided to go to the coalition with these two parties. Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo emerged as the first woman elected president of Mexico. Everybody was saying, look, she has more power than López Obrador because López Obrador had around a little bit less than 30 million votes. Claudia had more than 32 million. But it was as part of the Claudia Sheinbaum's political power that she had because she was a mayor in Mexico for 6 years. But most of this is for the continuation of the work that López Obrador has been doing every single day, pretty much for the first day, his 6 years of presidency from López Obrador. He was every morning on the mañaneras talking with the people, saying, "This is the news that you need to know." He makes sure that the media will not have time to lie about anything because he was already in the morning saying, "This is the agenda. This is what we need to be talking about." I think this is the real transformation and how Morena became a rise to power. Finally, Morena has a power. There is some upside downs here, which I don't think it is part of this conversation. We need to make one about the corruption that is already inside of Morena. A lot of people that they were against López Obrador, against Morena, now they are part of Morena. But I think that's something that we can talk in another occasion. But I think this is the history of how Morena became the most powerful political party in Mexico. And I think it's at least for another 12 years, it's going to be like that, because that's the strange that López Obrador made. And even when López Obrador is already saying that he retired from the political life, as soon as something bad happened, it's possible that he came back. Me, as a member of Morena, I'm a congressman of Morena, I hope he never have to come back, because in Mexican history, if we go to the history, to the old history, we had too many Santanas that he was just one guy trying to rescue the whole country. I think the biggest elections of López Obrador was letting us know, to each one of us, we can make the change. one at a time, the protagonistas del cambio verdadero. All of us, we need to do that. So I hope you have any question. I'm here. Thank you for letting me talking.
Thank you very much, Diego. That was a fantastic presentation, and you can see in the chat that a lot of people are already saying your praises. Please stick around for a little while longer because we have a little bit more to go. Supposedly we're gonna end up at 8:30, but it seems like we might, if people is okay with people, we will stay a little longer. Any case, now will be the proper time for Jill Stein to come to the fore and speak for as a member of the coalition, and also to ask any question or comments that Jill will want to make regarding Diego's presentation. So please, Dr. Jill Stein, come forward.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Lorenzo. Thank you to the Labor Community Alliance. Thank you very much, Diego, for walking us through the big overview of Morena's history. And as Lorenzo said, how did you guys, pull off this miracle? And yes, it's still in process, and we understand that the first 6 years were very much laying the groundwork for the work that needs to be continued now. And, it's very interesting for us here in this country to think about how do we apply the lessons and your experience, because we ourselves, we are also very much in crisis in this country. And we've just seen, another disastrous election where the needs of the people are not being met by any means. We just continue to backslide, and many of us feel like we don't have a political structure right now that can serve our interests. We have the best democracy money can buy, and money is a very, very big problem in this country. I was really interested in looking over information about Mexican elections and how is it that a People's Party could come together and really take the country by storm in the way that Morena did. And some of the things that I discovered, and tell me if this is not correct, because this is just my superficial, my first entry into this world of understanding Mexican politics, actually. But seeing, for example, that you have campaign finance limits and that your elections are publicly funded. As you mentioned, Morena looked to becoming a political party in order to have some income. And so there's public financing. On top of that, I understand there's also private financing, but it's supposed to be smaller than public, which gives you guys a leg up. And your limits, as I understand it, the limits for donations in your country is somewhere around 110,000, something like that, in that ballpark. In this country, we have no donation limits, especially now with with the Supreme Court rulings and Citizens United and the use of super PACs and all sorts of loopholes now that are legal ways to avoid limits on campaign spending, or I should say on campaign donations. Also, there are no limits on spending in our country, unlike yours. But in particular, the very corrupt money. In Mexico, you have corruption that can be identified and called out, various projects that are boondoggles or that are sales of public institutions and structures, like the sale of the telecom to Carlos Slim, was considered very corrupt. Well, in this country, everything is extremely corrupted. Our whole country runs on corruption and runs on big money. And, look at Elon Musk, who put $250 million into Donald Trump's campaign, or what was her name? The big Zionist sponsor who put $100 million into Donald Trump's campain. Allegedly, pardon me?
Miriam Adelson.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Adelson. That's right. The wife of the the deceased casino magnate who has billions. And, and this is not the exception. This is the rule. And, so the spending by campaigns in this election for the Democrats was somewhere around $1.5 billion. And I understand there's a total limit in Mexico of something like 100 million. But we have, $1.5 billion was the expenditures in this campaign, and financed mostly in very large sums, much of which is coming in anonymously as well. So we have such a corrupt system that it almost defies imagination. And so that's a huge problem. And that makes it very hard for people-powered politics in this country to even contemplate doing what Morena did. And in the last election, there were several of us that were basically running on very similar, if not identical, platforms, to cut our military expenditures, which consume over half of our congressional budget, to cut that, to put those dollars into what we need here at home, healthcare and housing and education and getting out of debt and all that, really urgent, dramatic needs in this country. But that's not what our Congress will do. The people want an end to the genocide in Gaza, for example. We're not only funding that, we're now funding the expanding war in the Middle East as well. That's with our tax dollars. We're not just funding, the murder of women and children. We're also funding the assault on Lebanon and the West Bank and Syria, and there is no end to it. This is not what the American people want, and this is impoverishing us and endangering us as we butt up against the potential for nuclear war now in several areas around the world. So we are so badly misserved by our government, which has really betrayed everyday people and the rest of the world, which is being set on fire by our political system. And it's very hard to change it, even while there were at least 3 independent small political parties that I hope will begin working more together in the future and with others as well. And that's why the example of what Morena is doing is so, extremely interesting. Also, I want to just note that your media is really, really different from what I understand. People campaigns they can't simply buy big media. In fact, they have to be limited to a level playing field in, if you're using airtime, radio or TV, there has to be a level playing field, which is controlled. In this country, it's very hard to overcome propaganda. It's very hard to even be heard if you can't buy your way into the discussion. And, there are issues, of course, on ballot access as well. There are so many ways to oppress the people in this country. It's quite overwhelming. Not that it can't be fixed, but let me just offer up a question, one burning question, when one looks at the miracle, the Morena miracle, and how you guys did it. Somewhere in what I was reading, I came across something that said that around the time that people were becoming infuriated with the PRI and really ready to break with the PRI, that reforms in elections and the way that elections are conducted, and I assume that means campaign finance, and maybe the limits on media. I'm wondering, when did that create a break and an opening for Morena and for a People's Coalition? Did that create an opening that was helpful to you? And then related to that, how did you get that? We clearly need that, and that is one way that I think us small, independent, people-powered parties in this country can collaborate right now, even while elections are kind of off limits for ordinary mortals. You know, elections are for billionaires and corporations and the war machine in this country, the way that they're run. But potentially we could collaborate on trying to, you know, expedite electoral reform. So I'm interested in anything you have to say about how you got to electoral reforms in order to even be able to run a People's Party.
Yes, good question. Those reforms were so important, but let me get a big change, because the idea behind those reforms was to make sure that the people don't complain, because everybody complain, I don't have the possibility to get inside of the political fight and whatever. They say, okay, they're going to give you this opportunity. But the truth is that all the political parties that were corrupt, so they were using those spaces to bring people. And we have it right now, I know all of you know, we have what is called Acción Afirmativa for deputies in Mexico, what is the opportunity to those minorities to get the chance to be a House representative. We had 5 diputados migrantes in Morena. From those 5, they didn't give that chance to the people that they are really the vulnerable sector, the immigrants. They go over there. They get people that they are in another country, like in Canada. We used to have one up there. We have somebody that doesn't know anything about Mexico. So they are important because even when they didn't use for their right purpose, the idea of the Mexican people that they were allowed to participate, that was a key point, at least for López Obrador. Here is how López Obrador managed all this to make sure to talk to every single one. That is no way when they open these opportunities for everyone, because nobody knows sometimes. So they need somebody to conglomerate all that forces and bring it together. What López Obrador was that, when you say that the corruption is in Mexico, and you are right about the limits of the spending, but all the time they never respect that. And the problem here is Morena right now, he's empowered because he's going to be the party that had the most money, because the political system, that's what they say, the party that had more votes, they're going to get more money, and the party that they don't have any votes, they're going to have no money. And the contribution, the donation is the same. There's a limit, but depends on how many people vote for them. Well, López Obrador and Morena, when I say López Obrador, is a small group of people that support López Obrador. One of them was already passed away, was Enrique Dussel, was the mind of the movement of the López Obrador, Teología de la Liberación. He passed away this year, sorry. So the corruption, the only way to fight that corruption is with the people. Here, the government needs to be by the people and for the people. But the same thing, those spaces that you say they open when they reformed the law, they were misused, and that was the big problem. Even when it was a big step ahead, but was just so the people be quiet and say, okay, you ask for this, you have it, but you're never going to be able to get that position. It's contradictory, but it's part of what Mexico is. I don't know if I answered the question.
Okay, guys, let's open up to the panel. And thank you very much to Diego and Jill for their already participation. And the panel is composed of people from different organizations that help to put this together. We have present Angel Montalvo, who already raised his hand, and he's gonna be the first one to speak from the Miami-Dade Progressive Caucus. We have Angie Neely from Sardon, Angeline Sardon from the Medicare for All Florida. We have Victor Nieto from Labor Community Alliance, one of the founders of the Labor Community Alliance. Jeff Bigelow from the Party of Socialism and Liberation, and also from Labor Community Alliance, and Valeria Ramirez. And before we go into with Angel, please, if you want to be added to the email list of the the Labor Community Alliance, please put your name and email on the chat so we can put you on the email list. And thank you very much to Diego and Jill, and let's go with Angel Montalvo.
Hi everyone, hola a todos. Diego, un placer. Yo no soy mexicano. I'm Cuban and Honduran. I was born in Miami, but I hang out with a lot of Mexicans. I'm actually part of a Danza Azteca group. We're called Dona Xochitl, and so I really appreciate the deep culture and the legacy of Mexico, and I'm really excited to be able to be in this space with you. I'm going to be speaking about the donkey in the room, the Democratic Party. But before I go into that, I wanted to take a moment, since I have the opportunity to speak directly to Dr. Stein. I just want to tell you about my dad. My dad was born in 1944 in Cuba, and when he came to the U.S. after the revolution, he voted Republican his entire life. I basically bullied him into voting for Bernie Sanders in the primary, but I didn't find out until later. This is my late father. He voted for you in 2016, and I thought it was really cool because I bought the party line where it's like you have to vote for Clinton because it was the lesser of two evils. And so I just wanted to tell you that personally. You know, world works in mysterious ways. So I am the president of a local chapter of a state party called the the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. We're the People's Progressive Caucus of Miami. And so I just wanted to talk about why I'm involved with it, and I wanted to hear your opinion, because the Democratic Party nationally, like any real national party in any country, is actually thousands of local organizations that are meeting regularly and doing local organizing. And to the point that you made earlier, like that Diego made earlier, I agree that the only way to fight corruption is with the people. I support third parties. I support the fourth and the fifth and the sixth party as well. And I think that right now the issue is that we have two parties. One is the Republican Party, which is the oligarchs, and the Democrats, which are the corporate party. There's no people's party. And I ask this to everybody who's in this meeting, do you know your precinct? Do you know the smallest unit of organizing that the American political system is based on? And if you don't, ask yourself why that is. Because a lot of the times, even though I'm a member of the DSA, shout out to the Socialist Alternative. That's how I started organizing when I lived in Portland, Oregon. You know, I'm with it. But I just feel like in Miami and in Florida, my personal analysis is that the Democratic Party needs to be accountable while they're the main game in town. And so within the party, I feel like for example, we just had a restructuring meeting in Miami where we elected new leaders for the county party and state representatives for the party. And the reality is they're not reckoning with the reality that they failed as a party. They've abandoned the working people in this country. And that's why they continue to fail, especially in Florida, especially in Miami. I don't say this flippantly and by any means. And so for me, what I see is like what we need to do moving forward, at least in my role within the Democratic Party, is making sure that there's a conversation with the people, about the issues that they deserve. For example, people never have anybody knock on their door or call them on the phone as a Democrat saying you deserve healthcare as a human right guaranteed by a single-payer universal healthcare system, like an improved Medicare for all system. Because like Ro Khanna said, we have golden shackles that they get all this money from the corporations, pharmaceutical industry, the private insurance companies that's so of this moment right now. And so, you know, that conversation needs to be had with our communities, that they deserve these things, that these are something that can actually happen. So I'm really happy that Medicare for All Florida is on the call. And also that the reason why they don't have this is because our parties are corrupt. And so my hope is within the next couple of years, we can build up the caucus as like as an inside outside, like a parallel to the party, because we're not held accountable to the local party. We're held accountable to the state caucus. And then we can grow our numbers so that we can populate the Democratic Party full of people who understand that the reason why we have the issues that we have. And so like my question to you, Diego, is like what did the like meeting the people in the street, like meeting people in their houses, what was that organizing like, and how did you centralize it through all of Mexico? Like what you know, to go like to talk about Lenin, you know, the Vanguard Party. How do you bring in these organizations? What did that look like in the day-to-day? Because for me, the parallel in the United States is the precinct is the smallest unit. So I think everybody here should be speaking to everybody in their precinct first before we even start to worry about what the national conversation is. Like, has everybody here spoken to their precinct member, like the people who go to vote at the same place they do? So thank you. I appreciate your time. And thank you for being here.
I don't know if Dr. J, do you want to answer first the question?
Yeah, go ahead. I believe that probably it's better for all of us to be doing it one by one. And Diego, try to limit it to no more than 3 minutes.
Okay. Easy way. How we in Morena we did it. It was start with your family. You are young. Your parents, they don't think the same way. They don't see the reality. And that's why we start here. Morena, the strength of Morena was me as as a member of Morena. I was start talking with my family, with my friends, making sure they knew what's going on, and then ask them to do exactly the same and start growing with the knowledge of what's going on. That's how Morena did it. It was a despertar de conciencia. In my street, I used to go. To me, happen in the United States was more difficult because you don't know Mexicans in every street. So for me, was trying to go to SWATMIN for SWATMIN and malls and all the stuff with my newspaper, Regeneración, and say, oh, you know, this is what is happening in Mexico. But in Mexico, it was more easy because in my own street, I used to go and knock the door and say, you know, something is, we need to change this because this is bad. Listen to the complaints of the people. People always say no, because López Obrador is a danger for Mexico. Say no, it's not, because Mexico is already bad. So there's corruption in Mexico. Everything is bad right now in Mexico, and we need to change that. That the organization supposed to be a start from the political party, but in the truth is not. They just give the idea. You start to go, start doing that. They give you the tools, the information. We received that information. We were talking with every single one. That's what we did. Okay, I think that's the answer to that. I hope I answered your question. That was the point of the how we did it. Was that way?
Let's go to the following person, Valeria Ramirez from the Democratic Socialists of America, Miami-Dade.
Yeah. Mucho gusto, Diego. Gracias por la presentación. I think you probably know my comrade, Luisa, who is one of our National Political Committee members, who put us in contact. But I think this was such a great presentation, and I think having these exchanges is really helpful for us to really think through how we build a workers' party, how we build the movement, because it is so incredibly weak, right? Our labor movement is weak, and our socialist movement is weak, and we have a looming Trump presidency, right? And I think two things came to mind. I would love to continue doing exchanges like this. I mean, the Democratic Socialists of America went and had an exchange in Cuba with comrades in Cuba. We've observed elections in Mexico. We've observed elections in Venezuela, and we are building international links. And I think besides learning from because we have to figure out ways to do things differently in the United States, like our context is different. But this helps, right, bring those ideas together. But I think the two things that came to mind for me were, well, with the looming Trump presidency, we will need to do some community defense. In my day job, I organize with mostly undocumented workers here in Miami. Lots of them are Mexican, and I think something that comes to mind is how can we work together besides doing exchanges like this? In which ways can we collaborate to do some community defense that transcends, right, just like my neighborhood, right? So if like the folks that I'm organizing with here unfortunately get deported, how can we have like a link so that they can continue doing the work if they come to Mexico, for example. So that was my first question. And then I think like a bigger question is like, how can we start thinking about not just these types of exchanges, but starting doing more collaboration so that we can work together. I think especially with Mexico and with Canada, like how it'll be so important for all of our three countries to work together to defeat capitalism and the claws that imperialism has, right? Like the reason we're here, a lot of us, a lot of immigrants, we're here in the United States because the United States was in our country before, right? And it like created conditions that made us leave. And yeah, so I guess those are my two questions. And I think they're very similar, but it's like, how can we do not just exchanges, but also think of ways to collaborate?
Thank you, Valeria. Yeah, the first step is give these exchanges of ideas. What we can do, collaboration. I think I know the political party like Morena, they have some limits. I'm a congressman of Morena, but at the same time, I opened a new organization, Frente Amplio de Mexicanos Inmigrantes. This organization, I opened it right after the 2021, and it used to be called Frente Amplio de Mexicanos en el Exterior. But the situation changed because the immigration issue is been raising up so much. And I started talking with people from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and they have exactly the same problem. So we changed that to try to bring together all immigrants. The people are there in the countries and they already have to move for one or another reason from his place to live. People live in Mexico, those ones there in the United States and Canada. What we can do, and I think it is very important with the DSA, with a lot of young people and a lot of old folks, they already know a lot of stuff, they were very wise, is start the collaboration. In Mexico, you know that Mexicans living in the United States, they are with illegal status or without papers, it's around 6 million to 11 million. Nobody knows exactly the true number. But Mexican from first, second, and third generation, there are around 40 millions. That's too many. And most of them, they are not involved in politics. What we can do, and that's what we are pushing in the Frente Amplio, is to make sure all the sons of Mexicans, they are living in the United States, that they are American citizens, start claiming their nationalism, their Mexican nationalization. At the same time, they get involved in the political party, in the DSA over there, in Mexico with Morena, and start making those bridges to get together and the collaboration. I think it's something that the parties, they don't gonna do. I think we need to stop talking about if the Democrats or Republicans, they are good or bad, because in my point of view as an immigrant, that's the same. Both of them, they are fighting for whatever they need with this money for a very small group. So that's the truth in the different ways. But at the end, we need to do something as a extra organization, that organization as a Frente Amplio, DSA, and all of you that they are get together here. We can start that. I invite you. I'm gonna leave the information here in the chat about my channel and all that stuff, because it's very hard. We don't have the money, and I think pretty sure you don't have the money as well as the political parties, and we need to start asking for them to help us. To me, it's gonna help. At least I have one more subscriber to my YouTube channel, because I'm trying to bring information. It's gonna be helpful for me to receive all the information that you have, and I can provide you all the information that I have. What's going on, the organization, institution, and they are already helping to a small group of people. I think that's the idea. One of the biggest things that helped Morena was the idea. Why we need to change to do that true change, and it's what Enrique Dussel used to call. Let me see, because I put it here, I don't forget. Is liberation theology. He used the religion. We need a Messiah to go conglomerate. The people need to choose somebody, one guy, to represent all of us, and that's what López Obrador. The power of López Obrador was not López Obrador. López Obrador without the people is just a regular guy. But it was more than 30 million that they say, we want that guy represent us. And I think right now the strongest figure in the United States is Bernie Sanders. But I think we need to do something in favor of him and pick somebody younger, because he's old. And here is many young people with brilliant ideas, but We need to start changing that. I think the main thing and the most important here is to start with this, changing ideas. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. What do you propose? What we can learn? And I think it's a long way to go. To López Obrador and Morena, Mexican country, this our country took us many years. After the revolution, from my point of view, this transformation this never was made. The revolution started to change the power. Everything is there. It's exactly the same. Finally, something changed in 2024. Because not even in 2018, because somebody asked me this, what are the top 3 things that are not this one? Progressive parties to allow the middle class and the rich man to get some concession is no other way. They own our life. So in order to change, we need to start one step at a time. And you need to allow the middle class, the rich people, to have this concession, because if not, they don't gonna let us. On my presentation, I didn't talk about whatever is happening in Mexico is thanks to something that USA is not interfering, because they have the power to do it. 1994, we killed our candidate, Luis Donaldo Colosio. He was ready to start the change in Mexico, and he get killed. So I think there's a lot of stuff to do. I think this is the point, good point to start. I'm gonna give you my information. All of you gave me your information, the same as I've been talking with Luisa all these years that I know her, is changing information, talking one to each other, and give the information that's gonna help the people. Not the people that's already on the power, but the regular people. I think that's the biggest strength. In the United States, you have at least 30 million young Mexican people that they are ready to get involved into the fight. But we need to get to them. Thank you.
Okay, next in line and the stack is Mark Patterson from Socialist Alternative, and then Angie Neely from Medicare for All. Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Mark. I'm a gig worker in West Palm Beach. I'm a student at FAU, as well as a member of the International Socialist Alternative. I want to thank Diego and Dr. Stein for their contributions, and yeah, the Community Labor Alliance for hosting an event tonight. I think that one of the most important lessons that we can learn from Morena is the need for political independence. Morena was able to break from the PRI and the PAN, build a political movement, and then consolidate into a political party, and then go on the offensive. To be successful, we need to consolidate our movements into a unified organization. Networks, coalitions, alliances do not seem to be enough. We need to link our movements into a unified political force. This can lay the basis for a new working class party in the US. The working class needs our own political organization independent of the two capitalist parties. Our task in the coming period must be uniting working class people with a program that unapologetically fights for our interests. We need a new political party that represents the overwhelming majority, what I describe as a workers' party. The ruling class is only as strong as we are weak. In other words, it is possible to push back and force concessions from the billionaire class by building powerful movements of working people and the oppressed. To build the most effective struggle, we need to fight independently of all capitalist parties and take on capitalism itself. I think Trump and the far right all over the world are reflections of the capitalist system. If our movement is actually going to be able to pose a threat to that system, the capitalists won't be afraid to crack down, regardless of whether there's a Democrat or a Republican in office. The key to defeating right-wing attacks is building militant, working-class struggles on the ground. That's something that both the Republicans and the Democrats are opposed to. So I think it's time to go on the offensive. So my question is, what type of organization do you believe is necessary to go on the offensive?
Thank you, Mark. It's not just one organization. I think the most important with Morena is that they conglomerate many organizations. They were open to every single one. Here you say the capitalism, that we need to take it away, but if you say socialism, everybody is afraid of that word. Enrique Dussel used to say, we need to end with with capitalism, but we don't know what we need, what needs to be done. We know something needs to be done, but we don't know exactly what is that. So start doing something. We start talking about what is the point, what is the goal that that we have. Taking the idea of the Marxism, but without trying to reach him, because it's already failed. But we need to start in one point. The organization in Morena, he started, as you see, in 2006, López Obrador had enough power by himself to take control of the country. But that's never going to happen because he had the power of the people. People were supporting him, but he needed another organization. He didn't have that. 2012 pretty much was the same. In 2018, finally, he came together, say, with organization that's a political party, Morena. He came with all the organization for the labor, from the medicals, from the Congress, from every single part, indigenous people, they were supporting him. I think it was the main thing. They respect one to each other, knowing that every single one had their own agenda, but looking for something. There was a start to get into the government. Once you get into the government, some things start changing. Morena in 2018, they have 23 secretaries, committees inside Morena. Right now, they have only 12 because they knew that in order to get to the power, they need to bring every single one. After that happened, you are allowed to start taking away those that you don't need. It's one of the questions that they made here. What needs to be done in Morena for the other parties that Morena made in USA, but the same they did it in the country, was open their doors to every single one. That's the big problem because now in Morena we have people from the PRI, we have people from the PAN, so we have people that they were against López Obrador and Morena, but we need them in order to reach the power. Obviously, with the idea of the power is going to be to serve the people. And that's why you need a social movement that everybody is, in their point of view, supporting something more higher than what they are expecting. So it needs to be one organization that accepts many other organizations. Because if you are looking with just one thing in common for somebody else, the same as everybody else, is the only way you can keep going. If you are expecting to every single one go exactly in every single point in the same way, there's no way. The young people, they have their own agenda. The old people, they have their own. The same as in the United States, it's not the same talking about people in California than talking people in Ohio or in Massachusetts. So, but at the end, I think this was the biggest thing in Morena, that they opened their doors to every single organization. They were used what's the organization of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Angie Nelly.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Diego. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. I'm Angie. I'm here representing Medicare for All Florida. There's organizations similar to ours in many states, and what we do is we're pushing legislators to catch up with the American people who know that healthcare is a right and that we should have healthcare, comprehensive healthcare for everybody, free at the point of service. There's so much we could learn from Morena and Mexico, and I wondered if you could speak to the healthcare system there and any changes that Morena has made to providing healthcare to the citizens.
Thank you, Angie.
Okay, the healthcare system in Mexico. One of the biggest things that's supposed to be López Obrador made was like to make sure every single Mexican they have the health system access. Here, the biggest problem is a very bad one. You need to wait too long to get taken care. But it's good. Once you are almost dying and you have the chance to don't die in the try, and you get to the specialty, they have the best doctors. I think that's it's not in the same way that the United States, but there's a lot of corruption. And I say it's not in the best, in the same way because both systems, they are corrupt. United States make a lot of money from the healthcare system. Everything's so expensive. But in Mexico, because we are not, and we don't have exactly the same amount of money that the United States, the medicine is very expensive. And that's one of the biggest changes that López Obrador made. He stopped buying those medicines, super expensive, that the medication, and start making the new deals. We are in the path to change this. But today, if you are sick, you are in troubles in Mexico. You need to go to the local pharmacy and pay like 100 pesos. So the doctor over there is going to check of you and he's going to give you a prescription and you're going to fill that prescription on that pharmacy. But this is because the old system, the corruption that there were in the healthcare system in Mexico. We're in the path of change that. López Obrador knew and saw what happened in the United States, that it's so expensive because just a few people, they are making all that money. And a lot of people, they are having problems to pay bills and they lost. For me as an immigrant, we knew that. We work so hard, we are saving our money, but be careful because if you get sick, you're going to lose all the money. One visit to the emergency room is super expensive. In Mexico, it's not the same. At least somebody is waiting for you over there, and you're gonna wait exactly the same amount of time that in the United States you wait in the emergency room 4 or 5 hours, but they're gonna take care of you with what we have, which is very small things. But I think we are in the path to change that. He made some big changes. He opened a big pharmacy and say all the medication is going to be on this one. And if somebody needs this medication, exactly this one, you're going to send it to that hospital. Because before, some hospital, they have that one, and the other one, they don't. So they were losing a lot of time just sending that money. This is the public healthcare. The people that they had money in this country, they don't have any problems. Same as over there. If you had money, you get well quickly. In Mexico, we are in the path to change that, but this is a lot of corruption in a lot of places in Mexico, even 6 years after López Obrador took the power. Thank you.
Okay. From the panel, Victor, Jeff.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, I appreciate the fact that you began by talking about the evolution of Morena and from a movement into the political party status, and particularly when you described it as a movement gaining power and some of the grassroots movement aspects of it. And inevitably, it became a movement that evolved into all movements like that, particularly in oppressed countries, come into conflict with U.S. imperialism, and it's reflected in the energy sector, and reflected in your comments about how AMLO came into a different relationship with the U.S. And that shows the different relationship of Mexico to the U.S. and that shows the importance of the new status that Mexico has now to U.S. imperialism. That's part of the tremendous importance that Morena has, because for us in the United States, that's the most important thing is what is the status of U.S. imperialism and supporting anything that breaks away from U.S. imperialism. And it's not just elections that are important, but the status of the elections in Mexico are just a reflection of the movement. And so the same way here, that the elections were a reflection of, Trump got elected, and the rightward turn that reflected was a rightward turn. But the reflection, it wasn't just bad stuff that happened. The elections also offered an opportunity. They offered an opportunity even here in Florida. 43,000 people voted for Jill Stein. 12,000 people voted for the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation here in Florida. That means that people saw a vision for a new society. That means that people were voting against the war in Gaza. That means that people wanted a new way. They wanted to chart a new way. When Jill Stein went around the country, and when the Party for Socialism and Liberation went around the country, they were talking about building a movement, not just an election here and there, but building a movement. And the three parties that Jill Stein was talking about at many different points collaborated on how to build the election process as best they could, probably imperfectly, and probably next time will be more perfectly. We need to do what people in the chat have been talking about. How can we build a movement that's more well coordinated? How can we build a movement that is more powerful and more united? And everybody is obviously for that. The question is how to do it in a more effective way. But we need to do that. What we need most of all, I think, here in the United States is consciousness, class consciousness, and organization. And I think that requires, first and foremost, a recognition that both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, even if they had more workers in the leadership of the Republican Party or more workers in the leadership of the Democratic Party, they're still both capitalist parties. They're still both on the other side. And we have to recognize that. And we have to build a movement. We have to build a party. We need, as somebody else said, we need a new party. And we need a new system, and we need a vision of that system, and we need to build a movement that has that vision. And we need to do that based, as somebody else said, we need to do it building a grassroots movement that deals with things that the people need, the people want. And I believe that that's something that the Morena did. That's one of the lessons of Morena, building something on the ground that had viability. And how can we do that here?
Okay, on this one, how you can do it here? I think you need to decide to start something new, because right now it's still the fight, Republicans or Democrats. I saw some of the information that they put here in the chat, that they say that you get 43,000 votes. People vote for Jill Stein in Florida. 12,000 people vote for the Party of Socialism. Nobody knows about that. We need to start saying, hey, it's more than two choices. Because everybody just thinking they have just two. Even a lot of Mexicans, they vote for Donald Trump, which is crazy. Because they didn't have any idea they have another option. They don't know that is independence. So I think in order, it's very important that you decide to start something new, but don't make the mistake to do it by themselves. You need the support of some another forces. Morena is strong. Why? Because they have the best. When they ask me if you're allowed to give some concession to the middle class, we were very close that Marcelo Ebrard was the candidate of Morena. Moreno Ebrard represent middle class, the old regiment, and we opened the door for him. At the end, the people decide was Claudia Sheinbaum. But this is what Morena did. Don't be afraid of opening the door to all the possibilities. And why Morena is not afraid of that? Because López Obrador knew that the people was behind him. Wherever he say, millions of people are going to support him. I think for in the United States, for the system that is over there all the time, two parties, it's going to be a long walk. But at least you need to start saying, this is all the options that you have. And maybe in the next election, you're going to have 1,000 votes more. But it's 1,000 more. And you start doing this, the awakening of the conscience, talking with people, convincing that you need to vote at least. It's not throwing away your vote if you vote for another option. That's going to be changed. It's the only way that, for me, in my point of view, there's no way that Morena is going to be here if they didn't open the door to the people, to the bad people from PRI and PAN. So, but they took the decision in 2014. They say, this is a small movement, with what is very important, Morena, let's make it a political party and start fighting with the big guys. And that's how Morena did what they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Gracias. Víctor Nieto. Víctor, are you there? Okay, Victor is not responding. Okay. We're gonna take one or two questions from the audience. And we're gonna start with the first hand raised. Gabe Ignetti.
Hi. Yeah. My question is it a plurality system in Mexico for president, or is it majority rule?
Morality.
Majority. The half
Right.
plus one. That's democracy. That's our system.
Wow, that's a big difference. That's significant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gabe. Next would be Linda Thompson. Linda?
Yeah, that's a big difference that I want to address because we're calling a national conference in 2025, a coalition. It's called Labor and Community for an Independent Party, plus some Black parties, a lot of Green Party members, to do exactly what everybody here says they want to do. And I think it can be very fruitful, but only if we also simultaneously challenge the whole electoral system and fight for ranked choice voting and proportional representation. The winner take all thing is just a killer for third parties. And I don't know if you ever had in Mexico those kind of problems, but Jill laid out the problems with the funds. You know, the billionaires have taken over the whole electoral system. And you did mention about money. Even though there are spending limits, there's a way to get around that. Could you go into that a little bit, please? I'd like to hear that because it's one of our biggest problems. And also in our country, Jill and the alternative candidates were excluded from the debates and any press coverage at all, just totally blacked out. So that's my question. What about the money?
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
How the political parties they get money in each election all depends how many people vote for each party. That's how they split the money. It's 40% is divided equally by the number of parties that exist in Mexico, but the 60% is all depends how many people vote for each one. That's why Morena right now with the biggest margin of voting for them is going to have a lot of money. They give money based on the representation. That's the public money. At the same time, they are allowed to get money from privates, but there is no way it's gonna reach more than the money that they get from the public. So if Moreno already had a lot of money for the 60% they are giving away, they are allowed to have the same amount of money for that percentage. And the small parties, they are not allowed to get more money than the money that they are allowed. So that is very bad because a small party, there's no way they're gonna fight against the big parties. But and the other way, when they say that even when it's different, the system, the electoral system, in the United States and Mexico, in the United States, it needs to be like a revolution because there's no way Republicans and Democrats they're gonna change on their free will. Oh, let's change the system that benefits to us. But I think the big thing that it's able to change here is one step at a time. One congresswoman, one congressman, one senator. In the United States, it's super different than Mexico. United States, the people have the power that if you start pushing your House of Representative to your deputy, he's gonna listen to you. In Mexico, we know that once you vote for someone, once he get to power, he forget about you. We're talking about by our 5 immigrants deputies that we have. Nobody chose them. But when one as an immigrant call him because supposedly they represent us, they don't answer. They answer to another interest. United States, and in what I remember the time that I lived over there, is that few of the senators and the deputies, they listen to people. So I think in this way you can make some changes, pushing those guys, they are already in power, but at the same time, start in something that's more like to start winning some seats on the House of, on the senators, with the deputies, and then you can do something that in Mexico, Colosio tried to make. Colosio was he born in the pre-system. The problem with Colosio was in the campaign, he was saying that Mexico needs to change. That wasn't bad news for the people they ostend the power. That's what he got killed. If he wait and he didn't say anything and he played the game, he will be the first president, and he will be able to change things in the Mexico history. But he was talking before he took control, and he didn't have that need because he was part of the old system. He was already president. For López Obrador is different because he was against the system. But I think this is one of the things you can do in the United States is no way you're going to change the presidency right away, but at least if you start pushing enough and making sure these small parties, they show up in the history of the United States, that's going to happen. What Dr. J asked me about, those reforms that change in Mexico. They say we're going to open doors for those people that they are no way to be represented in the United States. That can happen in the United States as well. And say at least if with a lot of work, you might change the law that in a few years that's going to help that the another parties had the true opportunity to change something in the United States. Thank you.
Well, it took you 7 years to get the president. Two more people and 2 more questions, and then we have to call it off because it's already way, and it's an abuse of Diego to do this. He didn't sign for all of this. John Copeland and Rose Robbie, and that's it. After Rose, the ball game is over. John.
Thank you, Lauren. So, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a question I kind of formed off of an important point that Dr. Stein made regarding propaganda being a serious issue in this country. I'd like to say, considering right now, we have a news media campaign going on, gaslighting us working class citizens without health insurance to feel sorry for the United Healthcare CEO and tell us how assassination is bad when the United States spends billions of dollars on military to bomb and starve children in places like the Middle East and Gaza, and while our own families die from denied healthcare coverage. So making this specifically about the issue of media and propaganda, this question is directed to Dr. Stein and Diego about, could you explain more regarding the Mexican media reforms that Dr. Stein referred to that Mexico conducted to combat the propaganda? If Dr. Stein, you feel that Diego could explain this better, feel free to pass it on to him. But I'm also curious if the American news media's response and creation to the monster of Donald Trump during his first election, I'm curious if that had influence over these newly written rules for the Mexican news media. So it's kind of 2 questions there.
So thank you, John. I'll just clarify what I found very striking in the reading that I was doing. And I was looking at the University of California, San Diego has a whole department or project that looks at elections and election rules and infrastructure in Mexico. And you can Google that. It's really interesting. And they talk about money in politics and the rules around money in politics. And they also talk about the rules around media. And I was like really shocked that you cannot do air, at least according to this university program. You cannot simply buy out the media, at least not radio and TV. You can spend as much as you want within the spending limits. You can spend on print media, and you can hand out literature. Didn't say anything about what's the story on social media, but on radio and TV, which is a huge source of spending by political campaigns and a huge source of what people know. I mean, this is why so much money pours in to political campaigns and parties. It's to conduct media campaigns that drowned out opposition and that make people think that they only have two choices. And then people wind up voting against who they hate the most. That's generally been the trend in this country for the last many elections. People are motivated by who they hate rather than what they like. So we have this very crazy system. But as it's described in the materials that I encountered, and in fact, I can share them. I could share those links. In fact, maybe we can do that in follow-up. We can consolidate useful information and share it through those who've signed up for this very, wonderful webinar. But according to that information, if you're a political candidate, you cannot just buy TV advertisements, and you cannot just buy radio time either. You can't do that. And there's a specific amount that is assigned to every candidate so that it's a level playing field. And that's what we need. We need a level playing field in which people are competing with their ideas and with how we're going to serve people. The American people want healthcare as a human right. They want to end the genocide. They want to cut military expenditures and put it into housing. Half of Americans are really housing insecure right now. Half are within a paycheck or two of being evicted. People are totally up in arms about the crises in our lives. And so our political system is very carefully controlled so that people cannot hear from candidates and political parties that would fix those. We have solutions, but our system, especially our communications, is really controlled. So that is my understanding, is that there are specific allotments and candidates cannot go beyond the equal allotment that's given to all candidates in Mexico. And that enables competition of ideas, that enables voters to actually make choices. Right now, voters don't have choices, and you can say, oh, sure, let's just talk to each other. Well, you're going to be overwhelmed in a second, by TV advertising. We need to be able to change the rules of the game in order to give us a fighting chance. Because in the US, remember, candidates are spending $1.5 billion. This is way orders of magnitude more than what people are doing in Mexico. It's relatively limited and the parties are equal. Here you have two ginormous players that are essentially silencing the competition, and they're also creating these war rooms so that they're undermining, they're keeping us off the ballot, they keep us out of the media. So there's a battle here. And you need more than good intentions. You really need to have a very aggressive game plan, and we need to have unity and a whole lot of planning. Exactly what we've been talking about. So many people have been, giving voice to. But I'd love to hear from Diego. Is that a correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
In some point, yes. In 2006, you remember the fraud that I was talking about against López Obrador. In the media, not only the parties, I mean, the electoral law say that all the political parties that they are in for the election, they have a specific amount of time it's going to be paid by the public. But before 2006, private people, they were allowed to buy time. No, forget about the candidate. Me as a regular person, I was able to buy time. And that's why in the TV in 2006 was saying López Obrador is a danger for Mexico. It's another Hugo Chavez. But it was not the parties, it was public, it's a private money. And they changed the law to make sure that didn't happen anymore. Now nobody is allowed to buy that time. We are fighting now with the social media because all the time there are ways to do that, and now it's very important. But I think the biggest change here was as you say, how much money the parties and the government spend on media. That's another thing that López Obrador changed. When he arrived to power, to the presidency, he saw that how much money the government was paying to the media. Even Peña Nieto, they have a famous phrase that say, I don't pay you to talk bad about me. So they have contracts with millions of pesos involved. They say, I'm going to pay you this, but you need to talk some good stuff about me. López Obrador say, this is no more. I don't want to pay any more media. And he started doing the mañaneras. Say, whatever I need to say to the people, I'm going to say it through the YouTube channel. And that's why all the media were against López Obrador. So in the law say that nobody else is allowed to buy any kind of time to promote and talk bad about one of the candidates. No one. And the time all the representatives of each party, they get together and they decide how much time is going to be, and they don't need to pay for that because it's already paid for the government. So it needs to be equally in how long is going to be that commercial, what time need to be in prime time. It's not like before the pre-array and pan were on the 8 o'clock at night and Morena at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, it needs to be exactly equally at the same time. If the news, they cover one candidate 3 minutes, they need to cover the other one 3 minutes as well. That was because in 2012, the news media was just talking about Peña Nieto and 2 or 3 notes about López Obrador. But everything was Peña Nieto, he did this. Peña Nieto, he did that. He got married with this. So everything was about Peña Nieto in every single aspect of that social life, not about the government. So that change is the law now. If the media is giving time to one candidate, they need to give it to another one. But the thing, the most important here was the government stopped expending money to the media. I think it was the best, the biggest changes, because it's the only way that the media is not going to be talking in favor to one candidate. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
The last question for the evening, because you know, we cannot just keep Diego here and all of us another thing that is important to know is that there is a Facebook streaming going on, and people are emailing me requesting time for questions, but it cannot be because we cannot. But before we go to Rose Robbie, let me say that this has been a tremendous success, and a success that belongs to all of us that are participating in this event, and especially to Diego for the time to put together a fantastic presentation. Rose Robbie.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to apologize. I got here late. If this was addressed before I arrived, then again, accept my apologies. But Donald Trump, as you know, has been elected. He's going to be inaugurated next month. We saw this on both sides, but quite heavily from Donald Trump. Tremendous scapegoating, demonization of the migrant days. And I think that we're looking at some very hard times ahead. I work with the Green Party, have for quite a while now. So I'm really asking this, speaking as somebody with the Green Party, although I think it could, be useful to everyone. What do you believe that the Green Party of the United States should be doing to push back against this and on a legislative and campaign level? How do you think we could be most helpful in protecting our migrant brothers and sisters? Thank you.
Okay. I don't know too much man about the Green Party. I need to know, but I think what Morena did was talking with the people, listen to the people. I think it is very hard. And I try to do this for Morena, United States. For me as a Mexican, living there is so difficult because the country is so big. Everybody lives so far away. It's so different than Mexico. But I think now with the social media, with all the network that they have, I think they start paying attention what people is talking about, what they need. Somebody was putting here, stop talking about the Donald Trump. He described as a orange clown. I think we can use even talking about him to show people how he is wrong, and we need to do something different to change that. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do is start talking with people, invite them to be part of something small. Somebody say, this maybe is illusion, it's never going to happen. But that's why I start my presentation with the students in 1968. In 1968, no one in Mexico could believe that López Obrador is going to become president in 2018. And a lot of people die because that dream. And some of the people, I include myself, we need to know that this is a fight that you can, in this fight, you can even lose your life because you are fighting against a monster, which is the capitalism system. So stop thinking that there's no way to reach that goal. It's not going to be maybe today. In 2018 was a big party in Mexico because no one believed that some guy like López Obrador, I'm talking about the imagined of the indigenous people, a brown skinned guy get to power without all that support of the people. It's a big road we can just go together. We, at least now I know that there's more forces in the United States. Stop talking about Republicans and Democrats. They don't gonna do anything to change this. We need to start talking about this small organization that they are doing something. And pay attention where, for example, each one of the organizations there you are here. See where you have more people with you supporting you, and start helping them to keep growing. Once they are strong enough, you're gonna keep helping to the other one. So that's say it needs to be an organization of organizations. That's the only way. For me as a Mexican immigrant in returning Mexico, when I say if I want to help the immigrants over there, I need to start with Los Angeles, which is the place where there's more immigrants, Mexicans over there. If I don't see a city, I need to go with California, all the frontier, California, Arizona, Texas. Florida is another history over there. But I need to start with those states that are very important. If I get those people get organized, that's gonna make more easy the job for the rest. I think we need to work together, all the organizations that we are here, we are there, as you say, for the immigrants. For me, everybody is talking about what Donald Trump is gonna do. In my point of view as an immigrant living 20 years over there, Donald Trump is gonna do to immigrants exactly the same than the whole history in the governments of the United States have been doing to the immigrants. Exploit them. If you don't lucrative, because the immigration is a business for them. So I think for me, there's not a surprise what he says he's going to deport 1 million people. Biden is already doing it. He did it in the first time. Obama did it too. Every single one, even Ronald Reagan, who made the big amnesty and everybody stuck in that, he made a lot of money to the American people thanks to that amnesty, to that reform. A lot of money started getting into the Social Security, for example. So we need to start small, helping one to each other, keep doing this kind of events, and talking with people, talking with our neighbor, because I sometimes it's more difficult talk to the people next to us, and if they are not thinking the same way that we are thinking, start listening to them, and then we can just manage that information that they are giving to us to give some ideas of what could be done to change this. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Diego. Thank you very much, Jill, and everybody else in the panel. Thank you very much for all of you that attended tonight. Please, before we leave, if you want to be included in the email list of the LCA, this is the last chance for tonight to be able to do that, so we can keep in touch. We're definitely going to be able to continue this work, working together and doing the best that we can in order to move this thing forward and accomplish, maybe not in 7 years, but maybe 10, accomplish what Morena had been able to accomplish in Mexico. Like Diego just said, in 1968, nobody in the world could have thought that Álvaro Manuel López Obrador would be the president of Mexico in 2018. Nobody could have thought of that 30 years later. Thank you very much for tonight. It's been a tremendous event. We are very proud to have been working with all the people that we work with to put this together. And individually, I want to thank a few people like Luisa Martinez from DSA, who got us in touch with Diego. Of course, the Green Party, Kathy Gilbert and her husband, Steve Shawan. I mean, without them, we couldn't have done it. Victor Nieto from LCA, we couldn't have done it. Jeff Bigelow from the Party of Socialism and Liberation, we couldn't have done it. And I hope I am not forgetting anybody here that were a major contributor. Gabe Ignetti from LCA, you know, did the flyer and did all these things that were necessary to make this event a reality. So I want to say thank you to all of you. I'm gonna be staying probably for a few minutes, copying all these emails. As you probably have seen for tonight, that I am not exactly the most proficient person in terms of the technology, but we do what we can, and we're gonna we can do all together. We're gonna move forward. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
Lorenzo.
night.
Thanks,
Good night,
friends.
everyone.
Thank you, Diego.
Thanks, everyone.
Muchísimas gracias, Diego.
A ustedes por la invitación. Hasta pronto.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So if you go to the top of the chat, the 3 dots there,